The SOS that summoned the most devastating space fleet. Part 1. The distress call. The small space station Horizon floated silently at the edge of human space. It was a simple research outpost with a crew of only 12 people. Their job was to listen to space, to collect data, and to be humanity's eyes and ears in this remote corner of the galaxy. Dr. Alan Wright sat at his desk, looking over the day's reports. As the station's commander, he had to make sure everything ran smoothly. He rubbed his tired eyes and took a sip of his coffee. The station had been quiet for months, with nothing unusual to report back to Earth Command. A soft knock on his door broke the silence. "Come in," Alan called. Olivia Bennett, the station's communications specialist, entered the room. Her normally calm face showed signs of excitement. "Sir, I think you need to hear this," she said, placing a tablet on his desk. Alan picked it up, raising an eyebrow. "What am I looking at, Olivia?" "A signal, sir. We picked it up about an hour ago. At first I thought it was just background noise, but then I noticed a pattern." Alan looked at the screen more closely. There was a series of pulses, grouped together. "In a familiar pattern, is this?" he began. "Morse code," Olivia finished his thought. "SOS. 3 short, 3 long, 3 short, over and over again." Alan felt a chill run down his spine. Morse code was ancient technology, not used in space communications for over a century. And SOS was the universal distress signal from old Earth. "Where's it coming from?" he asked. Olivia tapped the screen, bringing up a star map. "Here," she said, pointing to a system far beyond human-explored space. "About 20 light-years beyond our farthest colony." "That's impossible," Alan said. "There are no human settlements out there." "I know," Olivia replied. "That's why I brought it to you right away." Alan stood up and walked to the window. The endless darkness of space stretched out before him, dotted with distant stars. Somewhere, out there, someone or something was sending an old human distress call. "Have you told anyone else?" he asked. "Just Joe in the communications room. He's the one who helped me confirm it wasn't a glitch." Alan nodded slowly. "Good. Let's keep this quiet for now. I need to contact Earth Command." 3 hours later, Alan sat in the station's secure communications room with Olivia and Joe Davis, the other communications officer. The screen in front of them showed the stern face of Admiral Linda Blackwood of Earth Command. "You're absolutely sure about this?" the Admiral asked. "Yes, ma'am," Alan replied. "We've verified it multiple times. The signal is weak but consistent. Someone is sending an SOS using Earth's old Morse code." The Admiral's face remained expressionless, but Alan could see the concern in her eyes. "And you say there's more to the message now?" Alan nodded to Olivia, who spoke up. "Yes, Admiral. After the initial SOS pattern, there are gaps, then what? Appears to be coordinates and fragmented messages. We're still working on decoding all of it, but we've made out words that seem to be attack, help, and please." The Admiral was silent for a moment. "This could be a trap," she finally said, "or some kind of strange natural phenomenon we don't understand." "With respect, Admiral," Joe chimed in, "natural phenomena don't typically broadcast in Morse code." Alan shot Joe a warning glance, but the Admiral just nodded. "Fair point, Officer Davis. Still, we need to proceed with caution." She turned her attention back to Alan. "Commander Wright, I'm sending the exploration vessel Northern Star to your location. They'll take over the investigation of the signal." "How long until they arrive?" Alan asked. 4 days. Until then, continue monitoring the signal. Record everything, but do not respond or take any action without direct orders. Is that clear?" "Crystal clear, Admiral," Alan replied. The screen went dark as the transmission ended. Meanwhile, in a distant star system far beyond human space, chaos reigned. The peaceful world of Tyrannos, with its blue oceans and green continents, was under attack. Massive ships hung in orbit, their sleek black hulls reflecting no light. From these ships came smaller vessels that descended to the surface like swarms of angry insects. Wherever they touched down, destruction followed. In the capital city of Lyros, fires burned out of control. Buildings that had stood for centuries crumbled under the assault. The streets were filled with the bodies of the fallen. Deep beneath the city, in a bunker built for such emergencies, the few remaining leaders of Tyrannos gathered. Their faces were marked with soot and tears. "The northern continent has fallen," said one official, his voice trembling. "The Vraxian forces are moving south now." Prime Minister Calith, once a proud and strong leader, now looked broken. "How many have we lost?" he asked quietly. "Millions, sir, and more every hour." Calith closed his eyes, the weight of his people's suffering heavy on his shoulders. When he opened them again, there was a resolve in his gaze. "Is the signal still transmitting?" he asked. A young technician nodded. "Yes, sir. We're broadcasting on all the frequencies we found in the old archives. The Earth signal for distress, just as they used it centuries ago." "And do we know if anyone has heard it?" Calith asked. The technician shook his head. "No way to tell, sir. The signal is traveling at light speed. Even if these humans exist and are listening, it will take time for them to receive it and respond." Calith walked to a small window that looked out on a monitoring room. There, a simple device continued to send out pulses into space. 3 short, 3 long, 3 short. The ancient human call for help. "We found their signals by accident," he said, softly. "Old broadcasts that reached our world over decades. We learned about them, these humans. We studied their languages, their history." "And what did you learn about them, sir?" asked one of the officials. Calith turned, a small, sad smile on his face. "That they are capable of great kindness and terrible violence. That they have fought countless wars among themselves. That they value freedom above almost everything else." He looked back at the transmitter. "And that when someone sends an SOS, they come." A distant explosion shook the bunker, sending dust falling from the ceiling. "The Vraxians are getting closer," the technician said. "The transmitter won't last much longer." Calith nodded. "Keep sending until the end. If humans are real, if they are listening, they are our last hope." The signal continued to pulse out into the darkness of space. 3 short, 3 long, 3 short. A desperate call for help traveling across the stars to a species the Turanians had never met, but in whom they placed their final hope. And 20 light-years away, on the small human space station horizon, Olivia Bennett listened, working through the night to decode the fragmented messages hidden within the ancient distress call. The SOS that summoned the most devastating space. Fleet Part 4. The response, Supreme General Jakul of the Vraxian Dominion stood on the bridge of his flagship, looking at the burning cities of Tyrannos below. He was tall, with gray skin and 4 yellow eyes set in a face that rarely showed emotion. His black uniform bore the marks of many successful conquests. "How much longer until the planet is secured?" he asked the officer beside him. 2 days, Supreme General. The last major resistance is in the northern mountains. Our forces are moving to surround them now." Jakul nodded. "And the human scout ship?" "Destroyed as ordered, Supreme General. The wreckage has been collected for study." "Good. These humans may be an issue in the future. We should learn all we can about their technology before we encounter more of them." The officer hesitated. "Sir, do you believe more will come?" Jakul made a dismissive gesture with one of his forearms. "Doubtful. They are far from their territory. Even if they received a distress call from this scout ship, they would be foolish to challenge the Dominion." An alarm suddenly blared across the bridge. Officers rushed to their stations. "Report," Jakul demanded. "Massive energy spike at the edge of the system," an officer called out. "Something is coming through. Multiple objects." Jakul turned to the main view screen. In the darkness of space, points of blue light appeared, growing larger. First one, then 5, then dozens. "Magnify," he ordered. The screen zoomed in on the blue lights. They were jump points, tiers in space where ships could travel faster than light, and through these points came ships, human ships, but not small scout vessels like before. These were warships, massive gleaming vessels with powerful engines and weapon systems unlike anything the Vraxians had seen before. Ship after ship emerged from the jump points until the screen was filled with them. "Count?" Jakul asked, his voice now showing a hint of concern. 53 vessels, Supreme General. Various classes. The largest appears to be nearly 2 miles long. Jakul stared at the screen. This was impossible. How could a species he had never encountered before have such a fleet? And why would they bring it here so far from their territory? Open a channel, he ordered. Let's see what these humans want. Admiral Peter Howard stood on the bridge of the HSV Retribution. At just over 2 miles long, it was the largest warship ever built by human hands. Its hull was made of advanced alloys that could withstand tremendous damage. Its weapon systems could destroy an entire city from orbit, and its engines gave it both speed and maneuverability that belied its massive size. Around the Retribution, the rest of the Third Fleet took up battle positions. Heavy cruisers, destroyers, carriers with fighter squadrons ready to launch. The full might of humanity's military power was on display. Admiral, the communications officer called out, "We're receiving a transmission from what appears to be the Vraxian flagship." Howard nodded. On screen. The large face of Jakul appeared before them. For a moment, both commanders studied each other in silence. "I am Supreme General Jakul of the Vraxian Dominion," the alien finally said. "You are trespassing in Dominion territory. State your purpose or be destroyed." Admiral Howard's face remained calm. "I am Admiral Peter Howard of the Earth Defense Fleet. We have come in response to a distress call from this planet. Our scout ship reported that you are committing genocide against the Terranian people." Jakul made a sound that might have been a laugh. "The Terranians are a primitive species. Their world has resources the Dominion requires. This is not your concern, human." "You made it our concern when you attacked our scout ship," Howard replied, "and when you began slaughtering innocent people. Your scout ship interfered with Dominion operations. It was dealt with accordingly." Jakul leaned forward. "I suggest you leave now, Admiral. The Dominion has conquered 7 worlds before this one. Your fleet, while impressive, cannot stand against our experience." Howard's eyes narrowed. "I have a counter-suggestion, General. Withdraw your forces from Terranos immediately. Release any human prisoners, and prepare to face trial for war crimes." Jakul's 4 eyes blinked in surprise, then narrowed in anger. "You dare to threaten the Dominion? With what? Your shiny new ships? Your untested weapons? You humans have never fought a real war among the stars." "That's true," Howard admitted. "This is our first interstellar conflict. Consider carefully. If you want to be the reason why humanity unleashes its full military potential." Jakul slammed a fist down. "Enough. The Vraxian Dominion does not bow to threats from newcomers. If you want this world so badly, you can try to take it from us. You will fail, as all others have failed before you." The transmission cut off. Admiral Howard turned to his officers. "Battle stations. All ships prepare for combat." Throughout the fleet, alarms sounded. Crew members rushed to their posts. Weapon systems powered up. Fighter pilots ran to their ships. "The Vraxian fleet is moving to engage," reported the tactical officer. 28 warships heading toward us. The rest are maintaining position around the planet." Howard nodded. "They're dividing their forces. Good." He turned to the holographic display showing the position of all ships. "Deploy as planned. Battle Groups 1 and 2 will engage the approaching Vraxian force. Battle Groups 3 and 4 will punch through to the planet. Launch all fighters." From the carriers of the Third Fleet, hundreds of small, fast fighter craft launched into space. They formed up in attack patterns and raced toward the Vraxian ships. The Vraxian forces, confident in their superior experience, moved to meet the human fleet head-on. Their black ships formed a wedge formation, a tactic that had worked against many species before. The first shots were fired from a Vraxian cruiser. Bright red energy beams lanced out toward the human ships, but instead of hitting their targets, the beams bent around the human vessels, deflected by shield technology far beyond what the Vraxians possessed. Then the human fleet responded. The HSV Retribution's main guns fired, releasing pulses of blue energy that slammed into the lead Vraxian ship. Its shields flared and collapsed, and a second volley tore the vessel apart. Throughout space, the battle unfolded. Human fighters darted between the larger Vraxian ships, firing precision strikes at vulnerable points. the human cruisers moved, with unexpected speed flanking the Vraxian formation. On the bridge of his flagship, Jakul watched in growing horror as his ships began to fall one by one. "This is impossible," he muttered. "How can they be so powerful?" An officer approached him, fear evident in his eyes. "Supreme General, our forward line is collapsing. The human weapons, they're cutting through our shields like they aren't even there." Jakul stared at the battle display. Half of his ships were already destroyed or disabled, and now part of the human fleet was breaking through, heading toward Tyrannos. "Order all ships around the planet to engage," he commanded. "Nothing gets through to the surface." But it was too late. The human ships were faster, their tactics unexpected. A group of human destroyers and carriers had already reached orbit. From these ships came drop pods containing hundreds of human marines. Led by Colonel Lisa Martinez, they descended toward the mountain base where the last Turanians were fighting for survival. Jakul watched as his carefully planned conquest fell apart around him. For the first time in his long military career, he felt something new: fear. The Vraxian Dominion had never faced an enemy like this before, an enemy that came from nowhere, with technology that shouldn't exist, fighting with a ferocity that made no sense, an enemy that had crossed 20 light-years of space to answer a simple distress call. As the HSV Retribution bore down on his flagship, Admiral Howard's words echoed in Jakul's mind. "Consider carefully if you want to be the reason why humanity unleashes its full military potential." Too late. He realized he had made a terrible mistake. The SOS that summoned the most devastating space fleet Part 5. The aftermath 1 month after the Battle of Tyrannos, the planet was beginning to heal. Cities still lay in ruins, but the fires had stopped burning. The dead had been buried with honor. And in the places where buildings once stood, the Turanians and their human allies were working side by side to rebuild. Colonel Lisa Martinez walked through what had once been the central square of Liros, the Turanian capital. Around her, human engineers used advanced equipment to clear rubble while Turanian workers followed with plans for new structures. The sound of construction filled the air. Lisa smiled as she saw a group of Turanian children watching in awe as a human worker demonstrated how to use a small building drone. The children's blue faces lit up with excitement when the drone assembled a small wall in seconds. "They learn quickly," said a voice beside her. Lisa turned to see Kaleth, the Turanian leader, walking toward her. He looked tired but hopeful. The past month had aged him, but there was new strength in his eyes. "Yes, they do," Lisa agreed. "My engineers say they've never seen anyone pick up Earth technology so fast." Kaleth nodded. "Your people have been generous with your knowledge." "It's the least we can do," Lisa said quietly. "We couldn't save everyone." "But you saved many," Kaleth replied. "Without your fleet, there would be no Turanians left at all." They walked together through the square, nodding to workers as they passed. "I received word this morning," Lisa said. "Captain Garcia and 2 members of his team survived. They were being held on a Vraxian prison ship. Our forces found them during the cleanup operation." Kaleth's face broke into a smile. "That is wonderful news. When will they return to Tyrannos?" "Soon. They want to see how things have progressed here." As they reached the edge of the square, they could see the temporary headquarters set up by Earth's diplomatic team. A shuttle was landing nearby. "That must be Ambassador Nelson," Lisa said. "She's bringing news from the council meeting." Inside the headquarters, Samantha Nelson stood before a group of human and Turanian officials. As Earth's diplomatic officer, she had been working tirelessly to establish formal relations between the two species. "The Earth Defense Council has approved the treaty," she announced. "From this day forward, Tyrannos is under Earth's protection. Any attack on your world will be considered an attack on humanity." The Turanians in the room broke into applause. "Furthermore," Samantha continued, "we will establish a permanent base here with your permission, both to help with rebuilding and to ensure your security." Kaleth, who had entered with Lisa, stepped forward. "On behalf of all Turanians, we accept with gratitude. Your people answered our call when no one else would. We will not forget this." After, The meeting, Lisa and Samantha walked outside, where they could see the massive form of the HSV Retribution hovering in the sky above. Most of the fleet is returning to Earth space tomorrow, Samantha said. But the Retribution and 5 other ships will remain in orbit. Admiral Howard is taking no chances. Smart, Lisa nodded. What about the Vraxians? Any word from their homeworld? Samantha's face grew serious. Our long-range scouts report increased activity in their territory. They're rebuilding their fleet. This might not be over yet. Let them come, Lisa said firmly. Now they know what happens when they attack innocent worlds. Far across the galaxy on the Vraxian homeworld of Vrax Prime, the High Council was in session. Unlike the unified Earth Defense Council, this was a place of shouting and threats. 7 high-ranking Vraxians sat around a table, all trying to speak at once. Silence, roared one older Vraxian. Grand Marshal Dozar, the highest military authority in the Dominion, slammed his fist on the table. This bickering solves nothing. The room quieted. Supreme General Jakul failed. Dozar continued. He underestimated these humans and paid with his life. But we will not make the same mistake. The humans destroyed half our fleet, said one council member. We should sue for peace while we still can. Peace? Dozar laughed bitterly. The Dominion does not make peace. We conquer or we die. Always. This has been our way. Another council member leaned forward. But these humans, they crossed 20 light years to defend a species they had never even met. Who does such a thing? Fools, Dozar replied. Or madmen. Either way, they will fall like all the others before them. We are rebuilding our fleet. In time, we will have the numbers to crush them. And what if they attack first? Asked a younger council member. Our border worlds are vulnerable. Dozar had no answer for that. Back on Earth, the United Defense Council was also in session. Admiral Elizabeth Moore stood before them, presenting the reports from Tyrannos. The Terranian recovery is proceeding ahead of schedule, she said, and we've begun receiving delegations from other worlds that were under Vraxian threat. It seems word of our victory has spread quickly. And what of these other worlds? Asked Defense Secretary Daniel Wilson. Are they also requesting our protection? Admiral Moore nodded. Yes. 7 systems so far. All of them have faced Vraxian aggression in the past. All of them want formal treaties with Earth. We cannot extend our fleet to protect 7 more systems, someone objected. We would be stretched too thin. Perhaps not now, Admiral Moore agreed. But these worlds have their own defense forces. They lacked only the technology and leadership to stand against the Vraxians. We can provide both, Ambassador Nicole Harris spoke up. What you're suggesting sounds like an alliance, a federation of worlds standing together against the Vraxian Dominion. Exactly, Admiral Moore smiled. And beyond that, Dr. Carter has made an interesting discovery. She turned to the xenobiologist who had been on the original contact mission. Dr. William Carter stood up. My analysis of Terranian DNA shows similarities to human DNA that cannot be explained by convergent evolution alone. I believe that at some point in the distant past, our species may have shared common ancestors. Murmurs filled the room. Are you saying we're related to them? Nicole asked in disbelief. Distantly, yes, Dr. Carter nodded, which raises fascinating questions about how our species came to be separated by 20 light years of space. Admiral Moore raised her hand for silence. That is a mystery for another day. For now, we have more pressing concerns. The Vraxians are rebuilding their forces. Intelligence suggests they may attack again, perhaps targeting Earth directly this time. Let them try, said General Reynolds grimly. They've seen only a fraction of what humanity can do. Nevertheless, Admiral Moore continued, I recommend we begin constructing additional ships and expanding our defense perimeter. The galaxy has become a much smaller place since we answered that SOS. As the council meeting continued, discussing the details of humanity's new role in the galaxy, a ceremony was taking place on Tyrannos. In the newly cleared central square of Lyros, Terranians gathered to unveil a monument. It was simple but powerful. A stone pillar with 3 short marks, 3 long marks and 3 short marks carved into it. The ancient human code for SOS. Below it, words in both Turanian and English had been inscribed. To those who came when we called, may the stars remember their bravery. Captain Richard Garcia, now recovered from his injuries, stood beside Kaleth as the monument was revealed. A Turanian child placed flowers at its base. "You kept your promise," Kaleth said quietly. "When we sent that signal into the darkness, we had no way of knowing if anyone would hear it, or if hearing it would come. But you did." Richard nodded. "That's what humans do. When someone sends an SOS, we answer." Above them in the blue Turanian sky, the ships of humanity's fleet gleamed in the sunlight, a reminder to all who might see them that in this vast, often cold galaxy, one species had decided that the call of the innocent would never go unanswered again. And across the stars, as news of the human victory spread, other civilizations looked to the skies with new hope. For some, it meant safety from Vraxian oppression. For others, it meant potential new allies in their own struggles. And for the Vraxians, it meant something they had never experienced before. Fear. Fear of the species that had crossed the void between stars, not for conquest or resources, but simply because someone had asked for help. In the language of the Vraxians, there was no word for rescue. After humanity's arrival in the galaxy, they would need to create one. The SOS that summoned the most devastating space. Fleet, Part 3. The decision 6 days after the HSV Horizon sent its emergency message. Earth's United Defense Council gathered in the large meeting room at the heart of New Geneva. 50 men and women sat around a circular table. They represented all nations of Earth and its colonies. Their faces were serious as they waited for the meeting to begin. Admiral Elizabeth Moore stood at the front of the room. She was a tall woman with short gray hair and eyes that had seen many battles. Behind her, a large screen showed images from the Terranos system. "Ladies and gentlemen," she began, 4 days ago, our scout ship HSV Horizon sent this footage before breaking contact." She gestured to the screen, which now showed cities burning, people running in terror, and the large black ships of the Vraxian fleet. The room was silent as they watched. The Horizon confirmed that the SOS signal came from the native people of this world who call themselves Turanians. They learned about us from old radio signals that reached their planet over the last century. When the Vraxian Dominion attacked, they sent out the only Earth message they knew would bring help. She paused, letting her words sink in. "Captain, Garcia and his landing party chose to remain with the Turanians. We have had no contact with them since. We must assume they are either captured or dead." A man at the table raised his hand. Admiral Moore nodded to him. "Admiral," said Defense Secretary Daniel Wilson, "what do we know about these Vraxians?" "Not enough," she admitted, "but our intelligence analyst will share what we have learned." Kevin Patterson, a young man with glasses, stood up and moved to the front. He looked nervous but spoke clearly. "The Vraxian Dominion appears to be an expansionist empire from a star system about 30 light-years from Terranos. We've analyzed their communications and learned that this is not their first conquest. In fact, we believe they have destroyed at least 7 other civilizations in the last 50 years. Murmurs filled the room. Their technology is advanced, but not beyond our capabilities. They have faster-than-light travel, energy weapons, and powerful shields. But," he added, "based on what we've seen, our newest ships should be more than a match for them." "Then the question," said a woman at the far end of the table, "is whether we should get involved at all." Admiral Moore recognized Ambassador Nicole Harris. She was known for her cautious approach to interstellar affairs. "This conflict is happening 20 light-years beyond our farthest colony," Nicole continued. "It does not directly threaten Earth or any human settlement. Why should we risk our ships and our people in someone else's war?" Several council members nodded in agreement. Daniel Wilson stood up again. "Because they asked for our help. They used our distress signal because they believed we would come." "That's not a strategic reason," Nicole argued. "That's an emotional one." "Perhaps," Daniel replied. "But I would remind the Council of our own history. There was a time when Earth Stood by and watched as genocides happened, when we said it wasn't our problem, or it was too complicated, or the risk was too great. He looked around the table. I thought we had moved beyond that. The room fell silent again. After a moment, Admiral Moore spoke. There is another factor to consider. If the Vraxians are willing to destroy entire civilizations, and if they continue to expand their territory, it is only a matter of time before they reach human space. So you're suggesting a preemptive strike? Nicole asked. I'm suggesting that sometimes the best defense is to show potential enemies that attacking the innocent has consequences, Admiral Moore replied. General Frank Reynolds, the head of Earth's military forces, cleared his throat. If we decide to intervene, I must warn the Council that this will not be a small operation. We would need to deploy a significant force. The Third Fleet is our best option. It's our most powerful combat force and is currently on standby for rapid deployment. The Third Fleet? Nicole looked shocked. That's over 50 warships. This would be the largest military action in human history. Yes, General Reynolds said simply. And if we commit to this, we must be prepared for all-out war with the Vraxians. There will be no going back. The Council broke into small discussions, voices rising and falling as opinions were shared. Admiral Moore let them talk, watching the faces around the table. Finally, she raised her hand for silence. Before we vote, I want to play one last piece of communication from the horizon. The screen changed to show Captain Richard Garcia's face. He looked tired, with a cut above his right eye, but his voice was strong. This is Captain Garcia of the HSV Horizon. I don't know if this message will reach Earth, but I have to try. What's happening here is nothing short of genocide. The Terranians are being systematically exterminated by the Vraxian Dominion. He paused, looking at something off-screen, then continued. These people sent an SOS because old Earth broadcast taught them that we respond to calls for help. That when the weak cry out, the strong answer. I've chosen to stay and fight alongside them, but we need more. We need Earth to show the Vraxians and all other species in this galaxy what humanity stands for. The message ended and the screen went dark. Nicole Harris stood up slowly. I've changed my mind, she said quietly. Captain Garcia is right. They called for help. They used our distress signal because they believed we would come. If we ignore that call, what does that say about humanity? One by one, the Council members began to nod. Admiral Moore looked to the head of the table, where the Council President sat. Shall we vote? She asked. The President nodded. All in favor of deploying the Third Fleet to the Tyrannos system to stop the Vraxian genocide, raise your hand. Slowly, hands went up around the table. First a few, then more, until nearly every member had voted yes. The motion passes, the President announced. Admiral Moore, General Reynolds, you have your orders. Deploy the Third Fleet. Admiral Moore nodded once. The fleet will depart within 24 hours under the command of Admiral Peter Howard aboard the flagship HSV Retribution. As the Council members filed out of the room, General Reynolds approached Admiral Moore. You know what this means, he said, quietly. Once we take this step, there's no turning back. We will be announcing humanity's presence to the galaxy in the most dramatic way possible. Admiral Moore nodded. Yes, and we'll be making a statement about what kind of presence we intend to be. She looked at the screen, now showing the massive ships of the Third Fleet in Earth orbit. When someone sends an SOS, we answer. Every time. Across Earth and its colonies, tens of thousands of military personnel began to prepare for deployment. The massive engines of the fleet's warships glowed blue as they powered up. Weapon systems were checked and rechecked. Combat teams ran final drills. Aboard the enormous flagship HSV Retribution, Admiral Peter Howard reviewed the battle plans. He was a veteran of the Mars conflict, known for his strategic brilliance and unwavering resolve. How long until the entire fleet is ready? He asked his executive officer. 4 hours, sir. All ships report ready for the jump sequence. Admiral, Howard nodded. Very good. Prepare the crew for my address. Soon his voice would echo through every ship in the fleet, telling the men and women under his command about their mission, to answer an SOS from a civilization they had never met. and to show the Vraxian Dominion what happened when they made an enemy of humanity. The SOS that summoned the most devastating space fleet Part 2, First Contact. The small scout ship HSV Horizon moved silently through the darkness of space. Unlike the massive warships of Earth's fleet, the Horizon was built for speed and stealth. Its smooth silver hull was designed to avoid detection, and its advanced engines could push it faster than almost any other human vessel. Captain Richard Garcia stood on the bridge, his eyes fixed on the main view screen. They had just emerged from the jump point at the edge of the Tyrannos system. This was farther than any human ship had ever traveled. "Status report," he called out. "All systems nominal, Captain," replied the pilot, Officer Susan Miller. "The jump was clean. We're approximately 2.3 billion miles from the star." Richard nodded. "Any signs of the distress signal?" Communications Officer Greg Porter looked up from his station. "Yes, sir. We're picking it up clearly now. Still the same pattern, SOS in Morse code, followed by what appears to be coordinates for this system." "Any signs of other ships?" Richard asked, his voice tense. The sensor operator, Jeff Simmons, checked his screens. "Multiple readings, sir. Large vessels in orbit around the third planet. Smaller craft moving between the surface and the larger ships." Richard frowned. "Friendly?" "Unknown, sir," Jeff replied. "But based on their movement patterns, I'd say they're military, and there are signs of energy weapons being discharged on the planet's surface." The bridge fell silent as the implications sank in. "Dr. Carter," Richard turned to the ship's xenobiologist. "What do we know about this system?" Dr. William Carter, a tall man with kind eyes, stepped forward. "Not much, Captain. Our long-range scans indicated it had habitable planets, but there was no official survey planned for at least another decade. We know nothing about any civilizations here." "Well, we're about to find out," Richard said grimly. "Officer Miller, take us in. Quiet approach. Let's see what we're dealing with before we announce ourselves." "Aye, Captain," Susan replied, and the Horizon began to move deeper into the system. As they approached the third planet, the signs of conflict became unmistakable. The planet itself was beautiful. Blue oceans, green and brown land masses, white clouds swirling in the atmosphere. But in orbit around it were more than 20 large ships, black and menacing. "My God," whispered Samantha Nelson, the diplomatic officer. She was looking at the high-resolution images coming from the planet's surface. "They're bombing cities." The bridge crew gathered around the display. The images showed massive destruction. Once proud cities reduced to rubble, forests burning, and small figures, people, running, hiding, dying. "Those ships," Jeff said, pointing to the black vessels. "They're not from the planet, they're invaders." Richard's jaw tightened. "Can we intercept any communications? Find out who they are?" Greg worked at his station. "I'm picking up transmissions, sir. Running them through the translator now." He paused, listening through his headset. "Sir, they call themselves the Vraxian Dominion. From what I can gather, they're systematically destroying all resistance on the planet." "And the people sending the SOS?" Richard asked. "They must be the natives of this world," Greggy replied. "The Vraxians are referring to them as Terranians." Richard made his decision. "We need to make contact with the Terranians. Find out where that SOS is coming from specifically." "Sir," Jeff interrupted, "one of the Vraxian ships is changing course. It's heading toward the far side of the planet, away from the main fleet." "Follow it," Richard ordered. "But keep your distance. I don't want them to know we're here yet." The Horizon tracked the Vraxian ship to a remote area of the planet, where it began to descend toward a mountain range. Using the scout ship's advanced cloaking technology, they were able to follow it down through the atmosphere without being detected. The Vraxian vessel landed near what appeared to be the entrance to an underground facility built into the side of a mountain. Armed troops emerged from the ship and began setting up heavy weapons. "They're preparing for an assault," Richard observed. "That must be where the survivors are hiding." "Sir," Greg called out, excitement in his voice, "I've pinpointed the source of the SOS signal. It's coming from inside that mountain facility." Richard stood. Prepare a landing party. Dr. Carter, Officer Nelson, you're with me. We're going down there. Captain, Susan protested. That's against protocol. We're supposed to observe and report back, not intervene. Richard looked at her steadily. Someone sent a call for help, Officer Miller. They used an Earth distress signal. I'm not going to sit here and watch them die. Using a small shuttle and the cover of the nearby forest, Richard and his team made their way toward the mountain facility. They wore standard exploration suits with light armor. Not enough for a real battle, but better than nothing. The Vraxians haven't breached the entrance yet, Dr. Carter whispered as they observed from the tree line. They seem to be waiting for something. Reinforcements, probably, Richard said, which means we don't have much time. Samantha pointed to a smaller entrance partially hidden by vegetation about 100 yards from the main door. What about that? Richard nodded. Good. Aye, let's go. Moving carefully to avoid detection, they made their way to the hidden entrance. It was a small service door, sealed shut. I can't read these markings, Richard said, examining the control panel. Dr. Carter stepped forward. Let me try. I've been studying the language fragments we've intercepted. He pressed a series of symbols on the panel. To their surprise, the door slid open. Lucky guess? Samantha asked. Dr. Carter shook his head. No. This panel has Earth numerals mixed with their own symbols. They've been studying us. Inside, they found dimly lit corridors carved into the rock. They moved cautiously, weapons ready, following the signal of the SOS broadcast. They came to a large chamber where a group of Terranians were gathered around equipment. The aliens looked surprisingly human-like. 2 arms, 2 legs, a head, but with blue-tinted skin and large dark eyes. They froze when they saw the Earth team enter. One Terranian stepped forward. Unlike the others who wore simple clothing, this one had ornate garments and carried himself with authority. You came, he said in halting, accented English. Richard lowered his weapon slightly. You sent the SOS. We received it. The Terranian nodded. I am Calith, leader of what remains of my people. He gestured to the humans. You are Earth. Humans? Yes, Richard replied. I'm Captain Richard Garcia of the human scout vessel Horizon. Calith's eyes showed a mixture of disbelief and hope. The old signals. They spoke truth. Humans are real. Suddenly the facility shook from a massive explosion. The Vraxians, Calith said grimly. They have found a way in. Richard activated his communicator. Officer Miller, we've made contact with the Terranians. The Vraxians are attacking their shelter. We need extraction now. Susan's voice came through, filled with static. Captain, we have a problem. A Vraxian patrol ship has spotted the horizon. We're under fire. The facility shook again from another explosion, closer this time. Richard looked at Calith. We need to get your people out of here. Calith shook his head sadly. There are too many of us left, and nowhere to go. The Vraxians control the skies. Another explosion, even closer. Richard made his decision. Officer Miller, break off engagement. Make the jump back to Earth space. Tell them everything we've seen here. Tell them we need the fleet. Sir? Susan's voice was uncertain. What about you? We're staying, Richard said firmly. These people asked for our help. We're not leaving them. The sounds of fighting grew louder in the corridors. Calith looked at Richard with newfound respect. You would stand with us, knowing it means your death? Richard checked his weapon. Where I come from, when someone sends an SOS, we answer. Now let's see if we can buy some time for my ship to get that message home. As the first Vraxian soldiers appeared at the entrance to the chamber, Richard and his team took up defensive positions alongside the Terranians. The first battle between humans and the Vraxian Dominion was about to begin, and high above the planet, the HSV Horizon fought its way past the Vraxian blockade, carrying news of a genocide in progress and the desperate last stand of the first humans to make contact with the Terranian people.